Good morning and happy Friday. Yesterday, I sent out the Relic Delta beta version 5 numbers to Discord and to the event server. And I know that people have been talking about them a little bit. I haven't seen too many other creators really post those numbers and discuss them and where we are with the beta. So I wanted to take some time to do that this morning to kind of get everybody on the same page, on the same playing field with the information that we do have now and the further implications of Relic Delta and what to expect in the near future. So stick around in just a second and we will discuss, I guess. So, Relic Delta version 5 just came out yesterday morning. I have not had too much time to play around with the numbers. I will say that things are starting to look um, a little bit better, right? If you remember early on when update 2 came out, when version 2 came out, I had suggested that where the system should sit is Relic Delta 5 being negative 50% damage and positive 100% damage. And seemingly as a community, with update 3 and 4 mostly ignoring the targets on Relic Delta 4 and 5, we or most people thought that we were not going to see those numbers come down. The good news is that things are looking a lot better, and I'll show you right here if you haven't seen it already. Version 3 and 4, we were looking at those numbers untouched, negative 66, negative 50, positive 100, positive 200%. Now with version 5, we are seeing that negative um, damage differential dropping to negative 60%, then negative 40% from negative 50, and from the positive side, dropping the damage from 100% to 75% and 200% to 150%. Now, I know that there's still a lot of people out there going, "Hey, man, like these are huge numbers. What the hell, dude? What's going on?" Here's the reality, and I've kind of contended this since I would say like version 3, maybe version 4. Um, from our experience, from my experience, from the experience of reading a lot of the testing notes from other people, the reality is that the counters that we expected to work, the counters that rely on, I don't think gimmick is the right word, but gimmick is really the only word that I have for it. Like a Treya team, even like a Zori team, they're still working at higher relic delta, right? TM trains seem to be affected a little bit less. Teams that rely on damage sources that are self damage, they are affected a little bit less. Those counters are still working even at higher relic deltas, maybe with a little bit less prominence, but they're still fairly consistent. The counters that people I think are the most worried about, the counters that they're like, whoa, what about this team? Um, the counters that have already, like if you look at .gg, very low win rates without Relic Delta. Those ones are almost definitely going to be going away with Relic Delta 4 and Relic Delta 5. Um, and I'm gonna be honest, like I'm not mad about it, because again, those are hope and a prayer, Hail Mary counters where you throw them into GAC and say, well, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. And when it does, it feels really great. But most of the time, it doesn't feel really great. Now you're probably just not going to use those counters. I largely feel that with version 5, the majority of people are not going to feel too much detrimental effect. I do think that there is going to be growing pains. I do think that there are going to be shifts in GAC. I still will contend that players who have higher relics right now, um, and maybe they do play GAC, but their strategies aren't so great, they are probably going to shift up a little bit. And players who really minimize the relics, they are going to shift downwards a little bit. But things are going to equalize, I would say, within 3 to 4 months, to the point where we will actually see a little bit more of a fair GAC, and you're going to see a lot less of those accounts, in Erodium and Chromium and Bronzium, and seeing like 3 or 4 million accounts having to face them just by the very nature of them being harder to beat overall. I do well, what I will say is it does feel like, the beta is getting close to a close. Um, we don't have a timeline for when that is happening. We don't have a timeline for when this is releasing. All we know is the same stuff that we've known since the beginning, which is that presumably this is going to release during the Stranger's Conquest, though it will be turned off in Conquest while that is happening because it'll be midsection. My conspiracy theory brain says that this is probably going to release in mid-December because CG always releases something big right before going on vacation. But as I think about it more, I have a feeling that this will probably release right around the 10th anniversary of the game, so mid to late November. It does kind of make sense to be the 10th anniversary and say, hey, there's going to be this huge shake up to the game's systems and how that works. With the numbers that we're seeing, and I'll throw them up again, and how things are shifting. And I know I only have the version 3 to 5 numbers up there, but if you kind of look at each version, you will see that really like 1 or 2 delta levels are significantly shifted with each level. The first 2 were locked in with version 3. Relic Delta 3 was locked in with version 4. Um, Relic Delta 5, or version 5, I feel like Relic Delta 4 is probably pretty close to being locked in. But I think that we have one more version in us. I don't think that we are done yet. I do think we will probably see version 5 numbers shift in version 6 to like 60% damage increase at Relic Delta 4. And I would love to say that 100% number at Relic Delta 5. That is really where I want it to be. But I think 125% damage is probably where it will fall in line. Um, I think that this is probably the version 5 is probably the penultimate version at this point. This is, it just feels like we're getting to where all of the testers are saying the same things, and not too much is changing with each shift, and we're just kind of trying to fine tune certain things at that point. Now that leads us to, what are we still waiting for, right? Um, Economy update. I don't know anything at this point. I don't know anything, and I hope that we find that out relatively soon. How is the economy of the game going to shift? Still don't know. Is that going to be something that we as testers are going to get to test? Honestly, probably not, right? Because economy changes are a long-term thing, and there's really nothing for us to test in that regard. But I am hoping that we get that information and we're given that information to give to you guys. And I've been pushing for it. I know some of the other guys who are more, well known, they have been pushing for it really hard as well. And we're hoping to get that stuff to you. Um, we're hoping that it will be released. Conquest, how this is affecting Conquest after the Stranger, I don't know. A lot of discussions have happened about Conquest and where Conquest sits and how Conquest should change. And obviously, some changes have been made that have been made public. And some changes, like, how feat acquisition is going to work, especially with higher relics, are still being discussed. Do I think that this beta is going to go on straight through January, February, March? I mean, probably not. In an ideal world, we will have access to the beta client consistently, and we can put it down for a few weeks and then pick it back up when something that needs to be tested gets tested. I don't know if that's going to be the case. So will we be part of that discussion further in the future? I don't know. um, I do know that CG is aware of it, and I've said this many times on Discord. um, I know that uh, they have committed to looking at it from a player friendly perspective and kind of doing right by the player. And at this point, I've been criticized by saying that I can only take them at face value, but the reality becomes that I have the choice to be a conspiracy theorist, or I have the choice to take the information I'm given and work within the confines of that information. And I'm pretty much always going to choose to work within the confines of the information that I'm given, and outrage and uproar, if that is changed, or if things are not done in a way that is the way we were told. Um, the best thing that I think we can do is rely on the information of the people who are testing the system and who are actively engaging with the system and who are committed to testing the system and who have put in the time and the effort and the work to do those things. And there may be some people who haven't done that, who are going to throw around information. And if you want to listen to those people, then you're just it, then this game becomes American politics right now, right? Like, um, everywhere, there's always going to be bad faith actors, and if you are choosing to listen to the opinions of people who are outright telling you that they have not interacted, then there's nothing I can do. You're not somebody that I can have a productive discussion on the topic of. So, TLDR, if you're skipping to the end of the video, again, our Relic Delta 5 numbers are in. They are a lot more friendly. I think a lot less people are going to be affected by this than those people realize. And I do think we probably have a version 6 in us, but that version 6 will, in my opinion, almost definitely be the last version. Just the way that the versions have updated and how we've kind of slow rolled certain things, with each drop, right? The final thing that I'm going to say, and I've said this a lot on Discord because people don't seem to understand this point. There are people on every Discord and Reddit and the EA forums, and again, every one of us as creators has said, hey, don't do this. But most of us are choosing to try to make it the best we can. I've seen a lot of criticism that, oh, we keep saying blah, 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 this, and all of the players are saying this, and they're not doing it. They're not listening to feedback. The way that the feedback cycle works in a beta, or even in the real world, is that you take the feedback and you look at the feedback. And then if you're smart, you test the feedback and you go through the process of seeing how things are actually affected. The number changes that we're seeing are based on hard evidence. The number changes that we're seeing are based on the battle data and testing notes from that battle data. And I think that CG has been fair with us in that regards, whether or not the system itself is fair. I would say that when this does release, I think as a player base, we are going to be okay. And as a content creator, and this is the first time I think that I've ever called myself a content creator, but as a content creator, I know myself and many of the others, we will find a way to figure it out and figure out the economy and figure out how to game the system in a way that is most positive for the players. So with that said, peace out. Have a great rest of your day.